Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Exploring the Lord of the Rings. This is session number 313. And tonight we get into, the nice parts of Moria. The places where they're going to get set upon and attacked eventually. But we're going to enjoy our time there. And of course, we are moving closer and closer to... we're moving closer and closer. In fact, tonight's first slide, because we might get through more than one, is going to be the slide prior to the poem. So we are getting there. We are getting there. I'm really excited to talk about this poem. It's funny because all the other poems we've done, well, most of the other poems we've done have been ones that I've just been really excited to sit down and dig into, and a lot of them I haven't spent all that much time with. Sometimes I will have gone through them or will have taught them in a class or something, but a lot of the time, like for instance when we did I Sit Beside the Fire and Think, which I think was our last poem. Actually, we've been a little poetry starved in this book for a while. It's been some time by pages of the book since we've had a poem. But anyway, when I did that one, that was really fun for me because I had never actually sat down and worked my way carefully through that poem before. So I was really excited to do that with you guys, and that was great fun. But here I'm in a different situation because I have recently given multiple lectures on this poem, Gimli's Durin poem. I've been thinking a lot about it. I did a presentation at MythMoot on this poem, which involved, I think, 53 slides that I had on this. So anyway, I have a lot to say about this poem, and also a lot that I'm interested in looking at as we're going through. So I am raring to go for when we get to this poem. Exactly, color coded too. I may whip out my color coded slides when we get there, shock everybody by covering 20 slides in a session, though just multiple color tones of the same words are kind of cheating, admittedly. Anyway, that is coming up. But in the meantime, we still have 2 more passages leading up to that. So looking forward to getting to that. Before we do, just a quick review. So we have been making a lot of progress on our Kickstarter. I've been keeping you guys updated about this. We are now just under $2,500 away from our goal. We are getting there. We've had another 40 backers since last week. So things have been making great progress. We're a week away from our goal. So next week we'll be right on the cusp of it. Next week's class. So there's still time to help us get towards our goal for Rings and Realms Season 2. It is going to be so exciting what we're going to be able to do in Rings and Realms Season 2. In fact, I can tell you we're going to have an announcement later this week about yet another special guest that we're going to be able to bring to Rings and Realms. So yeah, it's gonna be awesome. So really excited about this. Thanks to everybody who has been able to support this Kickstarter so far. Looking forward to getting past the goal so that we can move forward into Season 2. We already have our plans laid next week. Before the end of the Kickstarter, we're already going to be filming, basically, because I'm confident in moving towards that, and it would be awesome to be able to actually achieve the goal before we even began filming, which we'll be doing next week. So anyway, thank you guys so much for your support on that. And as I say, there's still time. If you haven't had a chance yet to check us out on Kickstarter, just go to Kickstarter and search for Rings and Realms, or there are places like in this video description where you can find the direct link to that. And of course, it's also being being shared in various places here on the on our Discord and Twitch chat live as well. So, all right, so that's one thing. Secondly, just to remind folks about the upcoming moots, we are also nearing the very beginning of our fall moot season. Cascade Moot in Seattle, Washington is fast approaching. Next weekend, so a week and a half from now, I will be in Seattle, and we will be enjoying our discussions on secondary and tertiary characters. Really fun to shine some spotlight on the characters we don't usually talk about. Love that theme. So we're gonna be having a great time. My first visit to Seattle, so I can't wait for that. Hope that you guys are gonna join us for that. And yeah, we're gonna have a pre-moot Rings of Power watch party. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna be getting together, having some food, and we'll be able to. We should be able to sync up with folks who want to watch it along with us, who are especially with the folks who are attending the moot digitally, so we can all kind of watch together and stuff. It's going to be cool. Ooh, nice. Adam just sharing a new thing, which isn't even on my slide yet, but that's pretty cool. Hang on. So we got Ranger Moot coming up next on Bilbo's birthday weekend to celebrate Bilbo's birthday. Tolkien in the Great Outdoors. We're going to be having an outdoor moot. We're going to be doing awesome big crowd reenactments and discussions and readings and things. It's gonna be gonna be so cool. And then Stuttmoot in Germany. We've got a couple European moots planned for this coming year. Our first one here is in Stuttgart, Germany, on October 5th. That's going to be the weekend of the Rings of Power finale, so I'll be over there in Germany for that. Then back here for New England Moot, and then out to Kansas City for Middle Moot, both of those in the second half of October. And then we'll be finishing up the fall with Carolina Moot down in High Point, North Carolina on November 9th. The spring, we'll start with Sunshine Moot there in Orlando in February. But in the midst, we have, as Adam was just saying on Discord, which has just been announced today, Osmoot. Osmoot, whose theme is the music of words, which I think is the best theme ever. I assume we're going to be talking about hip-hop the entire time. But anyway, yeah, Osmoot 2025 in Melbourne, Australia, which is going to be again, it'll be the end of January, same as usual, 24th to the 26th of January, as we've been doing. So yeah, awesome. Yeah, Two Jewish Man, unfortunately, I don't think we actually are going to be able to have Eminem as a guest speaker at Osmoot. I'm not sure they how excited everyone would be about that particular invitation. I would, but well, we'll see. Anyway, it's gonna be awesome. Yeah. So yeah. So anyway, lots of excitement, lots of fun coming up with our events. We've got several more in the pipeline that we're working on that we should be able to announce before too long. So that'll be really cool. And then, of course, we have our space program, and on the subject of poetry, I wanted to mention that, as I've mentioned before, we're going to be doing a special. We've been kind of refining how we're going to do this. I'm going to be involved with a team of people. Sarah Brown is going to be taking the lead on this. We're going to be doing a series within our space program, a series of little mini courses on Tolkien's poetry, celebrating the release of the collected poems, which is happening soon. It's happening like next month, that the book will be released. So I'm excited for the collected poems to be released. We're going to be doing, I'm going to be doing some special lectures on individual ones of the poems. Sarah's going to be doing some teaching on sort of the collection as a whole. We're planning for a series on that to be, ongoing for some time. So that's going to start, I think, in November. But you can get into space and you can start voting. The way that we do things, and so a lot of you might not know how our space classes work. our adult continuing education program. Basically, people buy tokens, which are like a token is worth a single class. They're only $150 at most. You can get them for as little as $100 a piece to get a whole month-long course, live course that you're participating with, with your professor and a group of folks. Anyway, so what happens is you buy your tokens and then you vote, because we have like a lot of classes that we have available. We're trying to balance between, at the same time, having live synchronous classes, but also letting people choose, right? We're trying to make that as flexible as possible, as responsive as we can be to the interests of the community and the classes that people want to do. So it's a marvelous system. It's a wonderful program, the space program. So you can get a token and you can vote, right? So you can vote and we can start planning that stuff in advance. So anyway, that's is gonna be wonderful. Really looking forward to seeing. Sarah and I have, I know Sarah is beginning to work on it. We're going to be discussing our plans for the poetry series there. But anyhow, it's going to be fun. Yeah, as Matt points out, they're live courses, but with no homework. It's like everything that you love about learning and school. Like none of the downside, essentially. Yeah. So, yep. Anyway, okay. So that is one of the really exciting things that's coming down the pike here in the space program. All right, let us jump into the text here. Okay. Remember, they're coming to the end of their second march. So it's essentially their second day in Moria, their second, sort of period walking. That's the only measure they have, right? They had marched as far as the hobbits could endure without a rest, and all were thinking of a place where they could sleep, when suddenly the walls to right and left vanished. They seemed to have passed through some arched doorway into a black and empty space. There was a great draught of warmer air behind them, and before them the darkness was cold on their faces. They halted and crowded anxiously together. Gandalf seemed pleased. "I chose the right way," he said. "At last we are coming to the habitable parts, and I guess that we are not far now from the eastern side. But we are high up, a good deal higher than the Dimril Gate, unless I am mistaken. From the feeling of the air, we must be in a wide hall. I will now risk a little real light." He raised his staff, and for a brief instant there was a blaze like a flash of lightning. Great shadows sprang up and fled, and for a second they saw a vast roof, far above their heads, upheld by many mighty pillars hewn of stone. Before them, and on either side, stretched a huge empty hall. Its black walls, polished and smooth as glass, flashed and glittered. 3 other entrances they saw, dark black arches, one straight before them eastwards, and one on either side. Then the light went out. "That is all that I shall venture on for the present," said Gandalf. "There used to be great windows on the mountainside, and shafts leading out to the light in the upper reaches of the mines. I think we have reached them now, but it is night outside again, and we cannot tell until morning. If I am right, tomorrow we may actually see the morning peeping in. But in the meanwhile, we had better go no further. Let us rest if we can. Things have gone well so far, and the greater part of the dark road is over. But we are not through yet, and it is a long way down to the gates that open on the world." All right, so one of the things that I would just notice in passing, it didn't jump out at me. I was listening, though I sometimes got distracted as I was reading. I was not struck by any major alliterative patterns. That is something that continues to be interesting to me, because we haven't seen very much of that. I feel that has decreased significantly since we have been underground, basically. We were noticing, once we began noticing this, we were noticing that happened a good deal more during those descriptive passages when he's looking around at the landscape, describing the mountains, things like that. It's not been happening nearly so much. We got a bunch of it even at the lakeside and everything. So yeah, there are some places where there's, you can see repeated sounds, but nothing that really suggests a clear pattern. None of the kind of sound texturing that we were seeing before, where you could see, a dominant sound that would, was coming up like, 6 times in the first 2 sentences, of a paragraph, that kind of thing. Again, there are places where we'll get things like smooth as glass flashed and glittered. The GLs there relatively close together kind of jumped out at me a little bit, but if we'd had a third one, I'd have been all over it, right? But we just got those 2. Yeah, there's a bunch of like pairings and stuff, but again, that's not it's not the same kind of patterning that we were seeing before. And this is leading me towards a hypothesis. Not a theory exactly. It's not so strong as a theory. It's a hypothesis which we'll test as we continue going. But my hypothesis is, and it's a slightly ironic hypothesis in some ways, that the alliteration, his texturing of the sound of his prose, tends to correlate with his visual imagination. As he's visually picturing things, like things that he might literally paint in a picture, those seem to be the times when he does more alliteration. Now, certainly we have seen alliteration creeping up at times during action sequences as well, right? Like fling fuel on the fire, for instance, right? That whole scene there was a lot of alliteration going on there, right? So it's not just the kind of visual tableaus. And we'll see, is that something, are we going to see more of that, right? Are we going to see him kind of tending to use alliteration more in those kinds of action sequences versus the visual tableau? Anyway, we'll see. So but the remarkable thing has been, since we've been in the dark, basically, with the absence of those kind of visual tableau, we've not gotten it. Maybe that's not the real correlation, right? Maybe that doesn't actually explain the phenomenon, but so we'll see. We'll see what comes of it. We'll see how that worked. Jackrabbit is thinking about the rhythmic sound of the prose. Above their heads upheld by many mighty pillars hewn of stone is a lot of iambs all in a row. Yes. Now, of course, Jackrabbit, as many have pointed out, I'm thinking, was it Robert Frost who said that English can be subdivided into like strict iambs and loose iambs? I mean, basically, he was sort of pointing out that the English language is iambic rhythm is native to the English language. It's how our language tends to work, unless you go out of your way to prevent it. But there's a difference between saying it tends in that direction and to have, as you point out, a 16-syllable phrase of perfect iambic measure. Let me look at that again. Where is it? There it is, in the 3rd paragraph there. Great shadows sprang up and fled, and for a second they saw a vast roof far above their heads, upheld by many mighty pillars hewn of stone. Yeah. You know what convinces me, Jackrabbit, that you're right? Right in the sense, I mean, not just right to observe, hey, look, it's iambic, but to think that rhythm is something that Tolkien's leaning into in this sentence is the phrasing. For a second they saw a vast roof far above their heads, upheld by many mighty pillars hewn of stone. It's hewn of stone. Many mighty pillars hewn of stone. The phrasing there strikes me as not like weird or deviant or anything like that. But what people often call poetic language, right? That is when poets make word choices based upon the sound of the words, right? When they are sculpting phrases. And so therefore, their primary goal is not using conversational language, right? So often in a poem, you will have words and word orders and things which are either very strange, like nobody in conversation would ever talk like that, except like Yoda or something. Or, like that is, they'll be like inverted word orders and stuff, which happen a lot in poetry, but don't happen in conversation. Again, when those kinds of things happen, it's because, right, the poet is prioritizing the rhythm and sound of the language rather than the straightforward, like conversational flow. And I think that you're right, Jack Rabbit, and I detect in the end of that sentence exactly such a preference on Tolkien's part, him tending to leaning into the rhythm. If I had to guess, and this is pure guesswork because I'm now guessing how this might have happened. My guesswork is that this got started and he felt it and he, kept it rolling, right? They saw a vast roof far above their heads, upheld by many mighty pillars hewn of stone. Hewn of stone finishes it off, right? Yeah. Anyway, yeah, good. Fellerov says, I just heard how our language usually works and knew we were talking about iams. Absolutely. Exactly, Longshanks. Instead of hewn stone or hewn out of stone or pillars hewn of stone is a phrase that you can imagine hearing in a poem. But again, it's not how even Tolkien would normally talk, right? Right. Bjorning says the sentence feels almost overwhelming, like a run-on, almost, even though it isn't. And yes, it is that sense of momentum in it. The regular rhythm sweeps you along, and it keeps sweeping you. Like it does keep going. It lasts many syllables longer than it kind of you might originally think it's gonna, right? And they just keep bearing you along in that really solemn rhythm. Again, I don't want to get too in the weeds in looking at it's tempting, of course, to then go on and be like, how much is he doing that elsewhere? But again, the answer is going to be yes, you're going to find iams all over the place because it's English, right? But I think that's a good ear, Jack Rabbit, to catch that sentence. It does say, I agree with you that he's leaning into it there. And it is interesting to see him leaning into rhythm, the intrinsic rhythm of the sentence, rather than into alliteration. There is a grandness to that, Jackie, I agree. Eric says it's an appropriate sentence for describing something vast. Yes, exactly. Little Room Johnny says, I would love to hear how he would read this sentence out loud. Me too, a little bit, Johnny, though Tolkien definitely is not my favorite performer of his work. I mean, like what answer to how he would read this sentence aloud is how he would read it aloud, I'm pretty sure. You can hear his own sense of the rhythm of things. I mean, Tolkien had a marvelous, marvelous ear for the sound of language. And it's not that that is not at all reflected in his own readings. It is. But my goodness, it's like you're listening at 2x. And therefore he didn't have a great voice in terms like, just like the stage presence of his voice. It was not a beautiful or resonant voice. And my goodness, like I literally double checked the first time I ever heard him read the Namarie poem in Quenya. I had to double check. I thought I was listening to it at like 2x accidentally, but I wasn't. Holy cow, he reads that incredibly fast. Exactly, Green Great Dragon. That would be Lewis, who had much more of a booming voice. Though even his voice, like when you hear his radio recordings, I mean, he's not like James Earl Jones or something, right? Yeah. Oh, Jackie, I could imagine listening to Tolkien's lectures must have often been frustrating. I bet you I know, in fact, because there are records of this. Like basically, there are many famous people who came through Oxford while Tolkien was teaching there, right? I mean, he taught there for a long time. So there are a lot of people who went on, to like various fame or like writing careers or whatever. And they're basically like in two camps, right? There are those who took his classes and like found their lives transformed by them, like people like W.H. Auden. And then there are people who were like, he was the worst professor I ever had. Like he was the worst lecturer whose lectures I ever was forced to listen to. I could not understand a word that man was saying. Like that's, it's like one or the other. There was no middle ground, it seems, with Tolkien's student experience. Exactly. As Anul Bazar says, W.H. Auden talked about his legendary unintelligibility and how he loved every second. Yeah, exactly. That's, yeah. So anyway, sorry, we're sort of digressing here, but that is to say, I think that Tolkien's, his performance, his oral performance, of his story, there's a lot of things you can get from it. And as I said, there are places where you can hear his awareness of and even delight in the rhythms and sounds of the language. But it doesn't quite do them as much justice as others might. But anyway, okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's go back. So we spent some time talking about how these paragraphs sound, but we haven't actually talked about what they contain. They had marched as far as the hobbits could endure without a rest. Note, for instance, Gandalf seems pleased, not just because he chose the right way, right? But going back to what he says there at the end, in the fourth paragraph there, things have gone well so far, and the greater part of the dark road is over. It's noteworthy that after the sort of mystery of the night before, that is Pippin throwing the rock down and then them hearing the echoes, the hammer, the sound of the hammer blows coming up, is this, the uncertainty, does this mean they've, been made, right? Like, is there somebody coming for them? What does this mean? What's going to happen? Nothing's happened. And they're almost to the eastern side of the mountains. Like, as Gandalf says, there's still a ways to go. It's a long way down to the gates that open on the world, but the greater part of the dark road is over. Things have gone well so far. The whole second march took that one passage that we did last time. They've marched for an uneventful day has happened. And the fact that the day has been wholly uneventful, their whole central day here in Moria has been totally uneventful. That is, that's special. That's pretty pretty significant. That's pretty impressive. So yeah, that's a thing to note there at the beginning. I love the description. Suddenly the walls to right and left vanished. That sense of walking forward in the dark, the one thing that they had, there was a lot of emphasis in the previous passage to the previous paragraphs of the smoothness of the road. How they seemed to have come upon a major road, and there were no more passageways off to the side. It's all pretty straight and pretty clear. And then boom, it vanishes. Like the walls go away. And notice how this also gives the sense of, although they've been walking so long, as long as they could endure without a rest, there's also this sense of they're not moving. Like they're not moving. Things are just kind of happening around them, right? The walls to right and left vanished. Not they emerged out into a hall, right? They seem to have passed. We get the reflection, like the guesswork. Hey, wait, there's no walls on either side all of a sudden. The walls have vanished. They seemed to have passed through some arched doorway into a black and empty space. They're in a void. The only input that they get, the only positive input, they get negative input, that is, they can detect no walls on either side. The only positive input that they get about where they are is the movement of the air. And notice the hints that we get from this. There was a great draft of warmer air behind them, and before them, the darkness was cold on their faces. Now, underground, it's quite cool, and the temperature's pretty uniform, right? What does it mean that there's cold air on their faces? It means the air from outside is coming in. Yeah, it's the high mountain air in January, right? What's the date? February? I forget which month we're in. How long it's been since we left Rivendell on Christmas. But anyway, it's still winter, right? It's still winter outside. And of course, if there are, in fact, as Gandalf says, and of course, as it turns out to be true, that there are air shafts in the ceiling, then yeah, the cold air is going to flow right down those, right? And into, we're still in mid-January. That's what I thought. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the cold air is going to come straight down those shafts. And so this big, huge hall is going to be freezing. Such that the cool temperature, the cool underground baseline that they will have been is going to feels like, warm air pouring out of the tunnel behind them, right? While the darkness was cold on their faces. Love that. It's like they're feeling the darkness. The darkness, it's not like the dark, cold air, the dark air was cold on their faces. It's the darkness itself that's cold on their faces. Yes. Awesome. Yeah, Two Juice Man is pointing out how much fun the active voice is in this passage. The walls vanish. The shadows spring up and flee. The huge empty hall stretches before them. The black walls flash and glitter. 4 times in these paragraphs, their inanimate surroundings take action. Yes. Yeah, I think that's really fun. And yes, as Eric is pointing out, the shafts for the light. Yes. But notice the first reaction to this is not relief, it's anxiety. They halted and crowded anxiously together. Remember, what is dark on their faces is not a large inhabitable hall full of shafts out to the open air that show that they have in fact come to the eastern edge of the mountains. They're gonna learn that, but that's not their impulse, right? All they know is that the one thing that they the one thing that they had, that is the walls of the tunnel, they don't have anymore, right? That's now gone, and they are in this negative space void. And it's cold. It's different. It's a change, and change, there's no reason to think that that's a good sign, right? By default. Gandalf, of course, is going to interpret it differently. And he's, in fact, going to immediately do a commentary on this to help them parse what's happening. But for all they know, they're now in a more vulnerable place. The cold, who knows? That might be, that could be really bad. Right, Valori says, worst sensory deprivation chamber, 0 stars, would not recommend. Yes. Gandalf, though, immediately comes in, right? Gandalf seemed pleased. I chose the right way, he said. At last we are coming to the habitable parts. Notice how different that is. Like, habitable is not the word, clearly, that was in their minds when they got to write. This is like the one thing that's different is that now we can't see anything at all, and it's phrasing, right? Neither of these things are good, right? I see no reason to celebrate either one of those things. And he's like, oh, no, this is a good thing, right? We are come to the habitable parts of Moria. And I guess we are not far now from the eastern side. We're almost there. But we are high up. And I assume, Jackie, as you and others were pointing to, there's, it is probably the cold air more than anything that leads Gandalf to conclude that they're high up, right? A good deal higher than the Dimril Gate, unless I am mistaken. Yes. Yeah, Bjorning, I agree. The contrast between they halted and crowded anxiously together, Gandalf seemed pleased, right? The result of their crowding together anxiously is that they can see Gandalf more clear. Remember, he was way up ahead, his staff bobbing like a will-o'-the-wisp. Now he's right there with them. Like they're all like clustered there around Gandalf and can tell that he is pleased. We definitely here see Gandalf managing the vibe, Jackie, as you say, doing some serious morale work on the company. Yeah. And anyway, notice how much better he's doing it now. Remember when he was doing it before, like in Holland and over on the other, he was not great at it, or rather he was trying way too hard. That's why Sam kept grumbling, because Gandalf kept being like, no, this is fantastic. And Sam was like, actually, no, it isn't. Right. Yeah, it was forced and awkward. It really was. And this is much more skillfully done. I chose the right way, he said. I can confirm that uncertainty, not that necessarily any of them, with possible exception of Boromir, have been doubting that necessarily, but this is really good. It sort of reminds me of that line from The Princess Bride, right? He's looking out in the darkness and saying, what you do not see is one of the more habitable parts of Moria. So yes, we've come to the good part of town. That's good news number one. We're almost there. That is, we're coming to the eastern side of the mountains. That's good news number two. And from the feeling of the air, we must be in a wine hall. They don't even, he doesn't yet say exactly what that means. Like, that is, he doesn't immediately promise them that they might actually see the sun yet, right? Felleroff, that's a really, really good point. The will-o'-the-wisp metaphor does imply some level of lingering uncertainty about whether or not Gandalf is on the right path. I agree. I think that that's a very, very smart observation. It's really low level, right? Frodo, as narrator, doesn't actually cast aspersions, right? Doesn't even give voice to a doubt, the hobbits wondered if maybe Gandalf didn't actually know where he was going, or they had lots of time during that 8 hours of marching to wonder if, in fact, they might actually be marching to their doom because Gandalf had chosen the wrong path, right? Nothing actually says that, but the will-o'-the-wisp metaphor does very gently convey that at least as they're walking along, there are moments when their imagination goes there, right? Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Oh yeah, no, exactly, Bjorn. No, that's exactly it. Not Gandalf's uncertainty, their uncertainty. Yeah, the Hobbit's uncertainty, in particular. Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. Whether Gandalf had any doubts is unclear, unless the extent to which he's pleased, I chose the right way, suggests relief on his part, right? I mean, there could be an element of phew in there, right? Like, I wasn't sure the whole time, but, turned out well. I wouldn't lean into that too far. I think that Gandalf sounded confident before. Now, Longshanks says that things have gone well so far, and the greater part of the dark road is over, says the guy who dies soon. Yes, so I see not so much irony as it's a little bit of foreshadowing, but it's certainly, when we know what happens, we can hear this, like the weight. It lends some extra weight to things like, but we are not through yet, and it is a long way down to the gates that open on the world, right? And particularly Gandalf saying it's a long way down resonates a little differently after the fact, doesn't it? Right? When you come back and on a reread, that phrase might perhaps strike you a little differently. Yeah. Now that's interesting, King of Thorns. Welcome, by the way. If they've reached the habitable parts, would it occur to them that it's become a lot more likely that they'd run into any beings that live in Moria, be it orcs or dwarves? Really interesting question. It doesn't seem to. Gandalf's first response is, from the feeling of the air we must be in a wine hall, I will now risk a little real light. Risk is the verb, right? He will risk a little real light. On the one hand, I mean, you could say on the one hand it shows that he understands that it's still a risk, but it's clear, I think, from the context that he's, part of what he's doing is acknowledging, this is one of the reasons why I've not, what he knows what he's been doing could not be counted as real light, right? The will-o'-the-wisp light on the top, the little glowing light on the top of his staff, has not served to do anything other than to give them something to follow in the darkness, like a will-o'-the-wisp, right? It has enabled them to not lose him, but it's not been lighting their trail. Apparently it has given them enough light, perhaps, to vaguely make out that there are walls on either side. Though I suspect the vanishing of the walls is something they could also sense by sound, even without any visual feedback at all. But in any case, why hasn't he shown more light? Why? And again, it's clear he thinks it's a risk. Real light that actually illuminates their surroundings, is a risk. But he says, now is the time to take that risk. I will now risk a little real light, which suggests to me, King of Thorns, that he believes them to be safer now than they were before. Perhaps. So it would seem that in response to your excellent question, that Gandalf at least does not seem to think that they are likelier to meet orcs here in the habitable parts of Moria. Conceivable, I suppose, that they could meet dwarves. But again, I think that was always... I don't think Gandalf has ever actually expected to meet dwarves here. Longshanks is wondering what they gain by the real light, comfort or direction. Both, I think. Both. And even one by means of the other to some extent. That is, comfort by means of a clearer orientation, right? Because they only see... Remember, they're just in a void. They're in a freezing cold void, is all that they know. They feel darkness on their faces, and the darkness is cold. But then he risks a little real light, and that transforms things, right? And I agree too, Juice Man. We, as readers, gain more from Gandalf's light than the company does. Yes. Yeah. He raised his staff, and for a brief instant there was a blaze like a flash of lightning. That should make you remember some things, right? Lightning is what the light from Gandalf's staff is usually compared to. This happens a bunch of times in The Hobbit. Struck by lightning, says Bilbo, on the fender of his fireplace, right? When Gandalf strikes a blue light from his staff. back to Weathertop. No, I'm thinking The Hobbit. I'm thinking of The Hobbit. Lightning specifically is used as a description of the light from Gandalf's staff. In many, yes, when Gandalf almost dies, he was gonna sort of surge down onto plummet down onto the wolves in goblins, like a lightning strike. When there was lightning in the Great Goblin's Hall. So anyway, it's easy to forget in a sense, because we often associate Gandalf with fire, right? Especially recently. We had Gandalf's fire lighting the wood on Caradhras. We had the substantially more impressive fire on the hilltop with the wolves. So we've had Gandalf associated with flames on many occasions, and even the fire at Weathertop that they saw from a distance. On the one hand, it looked like lightning that went up to the heavens instead of coming down from the heavens, right? But that was just from a distance. When they get there, it's scorching flames, right? That have, the flames have scorched the top of Weathertop. But yeah, I mean, so as I say, we often tend to think of Gandalf in association with fire and overlook the fact that the light from Gandalf's staff is usually associated with lightning, even though it happens many times, like multiple times in The Hobbit, for instance. The blue light does seem to be a blue-white light associated with lightning. Yes. But it's hard because often when that connection happens, it happens like this in a simile. There was a blaze like a flash of lightning, which could make you sound like he's just comparing its brightness and brevity to that of a flash of lightning, right? So it flashed like lightning flashes. Not that it's in any other way necessarily like lightning, right? And that's how I always read these too, until I began to actually notice how pervasive that is, right? How frequently the light of Gandalf's staff is compared to lightning, and therefore perhaps not only, not only by simile in that kind of way. In particular, I don't even know how many times I had read The Hobbit before I finally realized why Bilbo said struck by lightning. Like, it was an embarrassingly long time before I ever associated that with the light from Gandalf's staff that he had just lit up, because I had always taken it, I had always heard it first and foremost merely as Bilbo's expression of his own sort of internal state in that moment, without realizing that he was literally saying that in response to the sudden flash of blue light that came from Gandalf's wand in that moment. Yeah. Bjorning, it's a really good question to ask, what he is asking us to picture. What I certainly think the light of Gandalf's staff, the blue light of Gandalf's staff, is compared to lightning so many times that I think we certainly should, when we hear about fire from Gandalf, I think that we should at least pause before merely imagining like an orange fireball, essentially, or like torch flame or something like that. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. So yes, it's like a flash of lightning, a sudden blaze. Great shadows sprang up and fled. I love that. Great shadows sprang up and fled. It's like the darkness that was cold on their faces are dark creatures that were crowding in around them, closing in around them, and that they rise up and flee away when Gandalf lights up his staff, right? Exactly, Jackie. He is chasing away the darkness here. Remember them crowding anxiously together around Gandalf. And then Gandalf holds up his staff, and the shadows spring up and flee before him. And for a second, they saw a vast roof far above their heads, upheld by many mighty pillars hewn of stone. Before them, and on either side, stretched a huge empty hall. Its black walls, polished and smooth as glass, flashed and glittered. Before we get the entrances and exits there, what do we hear? What impression? Thinking back to how we've seen before many occasions on which Tolkien's descriptions have seemed calculated to invoke in us the feelings that the hobbits are having, right? What feelings are being evoked by these descriptions? Not just the shadows springing up and fleeing is awesome in its own way. But what else? Yeah, Little Room Johnny says it's always so jarring how tangible the darkness is in Tolkien. Yeah, it really is. Overwhelming grandeur, Bjorning? Yes, I think so. There's a difference here. Remember the like overwhelming enormity of the place was part of the impressions back on March #1, right on not that makes it sound like a calendar date. Back on their first march, right? Back on day 1 of their journey through the mines. But this is this is different, right? Not overwhelming in the same way. It was bewildering beyond imagining, right? This isn't just bewildering. The bewilderment that was described, again, it was not just the magnitude, it was the complexity of it, right? All the passages and the interweaving ways, and like, they couldn't possibly keep track of where they were. They knew they couldn't possibly find the way out if they were abandoned, right? Like, it was that kind of bewildering. This is different. This is not confusing, right? There's nothing bewildering. It's just a huge hall. And even the fact that they can see, look, there's 3 entrances. There's a door there, and there's a door there, and there's a door, and presumably a door behind us, right? So yeah, it's not bewildering. Breathtaking. Yeah, exactly. Yes. The vast roof, far above their heads, upheld by many mighty pillars hewn of stone. Before them and on either side stretched a huge empty hall. What was just a black and empty space in the first paragraph is now a huge empty hall. Its black walls, polished and smooth as glass, flashed and glittered. I love the way that the room itself responds to Gandalf's light. Right? It casts the light of Gandalf's staff back at them in the flashes and glitters that are reflected on the walls, which are clearly not, I saw you guys talking about this before, it's not like granite, it's more like obsidian, right? These are polished and shiny. Yes, Luke, exactly. Now in the absence of gloom, the walls are glittering, right? Yeah. If there were gloom, they might gleam, right? But in the absence of gloom, they glitter. I think that's basically what's happening here. Yeah. But here's the other cool thing that I like about the glittering of there's a kind of comfort in that, again, as Gandalf says, this is more habitable. This is not a cave. This is not even a hall like the guard room that they were in before. This is fancy, right? They are in the great city of the dwarves and feel that they are in the great city of the dwarves. But more, it's black. The walls are it's not just dark in the room. The room itself is black. What do I like about that? I'm thinking about the shadows. It was a black and empty space, the room. They found themselves in a black and empty space. Huddling in an anxious crowd around Gandalf. And now, it's still black. It's still vast. It's still empty. Mostly empty, right? They are still surrounded by emptiness. They're still surrounded by blackness. But instead of just sensory deprivation, instead, the blackness itself now it's beautiful. Right? The blackness of the walls, instead of being dark and shadowy, is gorgeous. Flashing and glittering like jewelry. The very walls of the place. I agree, Bill Huggins. It's all of a sudden, instead of the sudden shift is from I am floating in this negative void and I don't know even if there is anything around me. All of a sudden now they find themselves more like within the enormous vaulted ceilings of a medieval cathedral. Yes, it's a very sudden shift. Anxiety. Remember, anxiety was their feeling before. dread lest the sudden void and the sudden cold be a bad sign of something they can't imagine. And now instead, it is wonder. And I think that's important. Remember, we were talking about this before too, that with the possible exception of Gimli, there was some wonder involved in the early passages. But again, it was wonder that was at least combined with bewilderment. It was not a positive experience. I mean, it was like amazing and stuff, but it was that sense of bewilderment is not fun, right? And it's quite different. Well, it's like a cousin. Feeling bewildered is a cousin to feeling awed in some ways, I think. But it's very different for all that. And yeah, the description of the beauty of it, polished and smooth as glass. Polished. Evidence. Like, notice the prepositions, the past participles, which convey the work, the evidence they are immediately struck by, not just the grandeur of what they're seeing, but the evidence that it was made by somebody, right? Hewn, polished. And then even we come back to upheld, right? The vast roof is upheld, not by the dwarves, by the pillars, by the hewn pillars, which are polished and smooth as glass, right? Yeah, it's both beautiful and civilized, Jackie, I agree. And this, I think, adds to the wonder. It would be amazing to see just an open natural cavern of this size, right? I've seen caverns, maybe not as big as this one, but you know, I've been in some pretty cool underground caverns before, and that can be amazing, right? You come to this huge space and you're just like, wow, this is amazing. This place is so beautiful. You know, you can come over all like, you know, Gimli at the Glittering Caves and stuff, but this is a different experience, right? This is their uncovering. It is much more like a cathedral experience, right? These are the works of hands. And it is really, really, impressive in this way. Yes, Almarea, I agree. Gimli, there's not even a reference to Gimli and what Gimli is experiencing here. I actually kind of love that silence. Not because I think that he's like skipping Gimli or disregarding Gimli, but he's already given us enough to sort of guess at Gimli's feelings, right? And it's almost like the fact that himself is so in awe of what he sees here that he doesn't describe anybody else's reactions because he's too busy looking at the thing to even notice whatever anybody else is doing or saying, right? You know, his own sort of absorption in the experience precludes that. But we've been told enough about Gimli before to make a guess at Gimli's reaction here. Yeah, Emma Thorne, this in particular, I think this moment would be something almost like a culmination of that kind of pilgrimage experience for Gimli. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Ardent Crayon says, remembering ahead, this could be compared to the great pillar-like trees of Lorien. Yes, I agree. Ardent Crayon, you can help us remember when we get there, which, you know, is just around the corner, to compare to this. I think that their impressions of Lorien are going to be interesting to compare to the impressions here that we've we've seen. Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be less than a decade, Rowan. Substantially less. Okay, 3 other entrances they saw. Dark black arches, one straight before them eastwards and one on either side. Even that is sort of comforting. Their path is relatively... I mean, and once again, you could say, well, they're at a choice of 3 ways again, right? But not even there. Like, they can see the directions. Like, from here, they could choose. Do we want to go east? Do we want to go north? Do we want to go south, right? That's... even that itself is comforting. It's like you can navigate, right? It's like the experience that you might have in trying to find your way around Midtown New York, in contrast to what it's like trying to find your way around Washington, D.C. But anyway, yeah. Bjorning says, how do they know they're facing east? Gandalf, basically. That seems to be one straight before them eastwards, I think, is probably retrospective in some ways. Gandalf, or well, take it this way. You could almost see that it is like the will-o'-the-wisp simile in reverse, right? If the will-o'-the-wisp passage implies lingering doubt as to whether or not Gandalf really knows the way that he's going, the confident assertion that the way straight across from them is eastwards is a similar expression of confidence now in Gandalf's direction, I think. That is all I shall venture on for the present, said Gandalf. There used to be great windows on the mountainside and shafts leading out to the light in the upper reaches of the mines. I think we have reached them now, but it is night outside again, and we cannot tell until morning. If I am right, tomorrow we may actually see the morning peeping in. But in the meanwhile, we had better go no further. Let us rest if we can. Things have gone well so far, and the greater part of the dark road is over, but we are not through yet, and it is a long way down to the gates that open on the world. Okay, so... hang on, I skipped the last sentence. Then the light went out. First of all, I think that certainly seems to me to show that the lightning is not merely a comparison of brightness and brevity. Because if it had in fact been a light as brief as lightning, there isn't a description of the world around you and then the light went out, right? Could you even imagine formulating, like in an actual lightning strike, can you imagine even formulating the thought and then the light went out? Right? I mean, that's not what lightning is like, right? That is, so I think that his light lasts for longer than lightning. And so it's not in its brevity that it is, it's not just in its brevity that's being compared. Yeah, exactly. That would be more disorienting than helpful. I mean, imagine like a single strobe from a strobe light, right? Like, did you get that, guys? Right? Were you able to take in, your surroundings there? It was clearly on for several seconds. And then the light went out. Sorry, the other thing that's sort of striking me about that. The light went out is just, it's It's just a sort of passive thing. Like Gandalf doesn't put out the light. The darkness doesn't return. The light just goes out. I'm thinking about the shadows springing up and fleeing, right? When the light goes out, there's no sense of the shadows returning. The darkness does, and they're no longer in a black and empty space with cold darkness on their faces. They're still in this hall, but now the light's out. It does seem to have really changed things, I think. Miss Ray says, I imagine them blinking away the after images of the Flash for ages. Well, yeah. And Miss Ray, actually, under the circumstances, there'd be something slightly pleasant. I mean, assuming they weren't actually staring at Gandalf's staff when it happened. I don't doubt that you're correct. That after all that time in the pitch darkness, the little real light that Gandalf has risked in this paragraph would have seared the image of this dark hall on their eyes. And even after the light has gone out, they're still going to be seeing that for some time. Again, even if they're going to be seeing nothing but a red dot, right? Red blob. If they were staring right at the light when that happened, but assuming they were staring out into the hall, as the description leads us to believe, the after image of that probably is going to stay in their, like, in their minds, right? In the darkness here. Yeah. Anyway, Gandalf's final speech then. Notice again his verb here is venture, just like risk. Right? That was a calculated risk. That was a venture to have illuminated the hall like that. That is all I shall venture on for the present. Then he talks about the windows. He doesn't draw the connection explicitly to the cold air in the room, but if we remember it, it now gives the first thing he did. Remember, they only had two pieces of sensory input about this hall. One was that it was now a completely empty, dark void, and the second was that it was freezing. He has dispelled the shadows. He's driven away the shadows, and he has filled in the black empty. It's no longer an empty space. It is now a great hall which evokes wonder and awe. And he's now explaining, contextualizing the cold, right? It is night outside, and we cannot. So he's not promising, kind of hedging his bets. I think that's what's happening here. There were great windows on the mountainside. Notice the piece of hope that he has given them. Right now, where we stand in this hall, we are in touch with the outside world again. That's how close it is to being over. We are no longer lost in the long dark of Moria. If it's night outside again, so we can't tell by looking up. But this dark, this black and empty space is not only not just a void, it's a gorgeously carved and beautifully constructed hall, but also it's connected to the outside and daylight comes in. So yes, he's pointing out, without drawing attention explicitly to the cold, he is pointing out why that's a good sign. And so now, although they are now, the light is off, and so they are now once again in exactly the same kind of sensory void that they were in before. Now what he has done is completely changed how they are to think about it. Tomorrow we may actually see the morning peeping in. I love the peeping in, right? Like I'm not promising we're going to be in broad daylight tomorrow, right? I'm not saying it's over. Like, notice how that kind of leads very directly to, but we are not through yet, right? We are almost there, but almost there's still a lot. There's still a good ways. We have now, I think, come back into contact with the world up above, but we don't have the access to it yet. Yeah. Let us rest if we can. The greater part of the dark road is over. Things have gone well. But we are not through yet, and it is a long way down to the gates that open on the world. Capital G gates. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Little Room Johnny, I totally agree. He talks about the Dimrill gate. Capital D, capital G. A good deal higher than the Dimrill gate. Can one of you look this up? Did they use that? I can't remember if he used that exact phrase before. I know that they talked about the Dimrill Dale. I know that expression came up before, but they did use the phrase Dimrill Gate. Okay, they did use that before. All right, so that should in fact sound familiar. I too once passed the Dimrill Gate, said Aragorn quietly. Thanks, Luke. Appreciate that. Yes. Okay, and so when Aragorn says it, we know about the context because they have talked about the Dimrill Dale. That's what's over there on the east side. Okay, great. So we know that that's where they're headed. That's where they've been headed all along. But I agree with what Little Room Johnny was just saying, that the gates that open on the world sounds extremely mythic, right? I mean, that... as he says, it sounds as mythic as the doors of night. Yeah, absolutely. It is it's like, doesn't it? It sounds like the title of a poem. No, it sounds like the title of a William Morris novel. That's what it sounds like. Man, William Morris is not my favorite novelist, but boy, could that guy title a novel, right? I'm thinking of titles like The Well at the World's End. Oh man, like his titles are like, his titles are greater and more evocative and more rich with myth and poetic suggestion than like many whole books that other people write. The Water of the Wondrous Isles, yes. Pillars of the Earth, yes. The Sundering Flood. Again, yeah, like just find yourself a list of books written by William Morris and just marvel at his titles. They are so good. They are so good. Yeah. Anyway, but I agree, Johnny. My point is, the gates that open on the world sounds like a William Morris title, doesn't it? Which means it's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's that again. It sounds like a whole myth. And of course evokes myth. You know, remember even briefly the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice, for instance, right? And think about the gates that open on the world, right? Yeah, no, I mean the kind of mythic suggestiveness that it has, Little Room Johnny, I totally agree. I think it's awesome. Yes, Jackrabbit, I was thinking of that. Lewis talks about like, how could anyone Lewis talks about The Well at the World's End and what an awesome title that is, and he's like, the book isn't as good, but who could possibly write a novel that could be as good as the title, The Well at the World's End? Like, the novel can't possibly be as good as the title. Yeah, that was a Lewis comment. Yeah, I'm trying to remember where that was. I think it must be in like on Stories, maybe something like that. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Oh, Green Great Dragon, The Sleeper in the Tower of Pearl is one of my favorite. I almost quoted The Sleeper in the Tower of Pearl just when I was talking about mythic phrases. Got distracted by talking about William Morris. But I agree. Bjorning says the mythic tone of this also serves to reinforce how foreign, how unsettled, how metaphorically lost the company is, far from anything familiar or comforting. Yes, it does sort of acknowledge. Notice how the mythic suggestiveness of the gates that open on the world implies that where they are right now is not in the world, right? That they are in this strange other world. They are in an underworld, right? Which is the normal world, right? The daylight, mundane world that they have all grown up with and known. And so there is, on Gandalf's part, a kind of acknowledgement of that reality, right? We are still trapped in the underworld, right? We have not yet emerged. But although it's still a long ways down to them, we're getting closer to it. By the way, it has always had, and this is the last comment I'll make, and then I'll let you guys, we're getting late. It's always had a strange effect on my imagination that on the one hand, they're clearly in an underworld, right? And when they emerge from the gates that open on the world, they're going to be coming up, right? Like conceptually out of the underworld and up into the world, the open world of the sunlight. And yet they have to go down to it. They're currently an altitude above that right now. The strange upside down feeling of they are still trapped in the underworld, which barely contacts our normal world, and yet they're high up, right? The high regions of the underworld, which are far above the landscape outside. They have to, exactly, they're descending from Hades. That's exactly it, Aranos. There's something topsy-turvy about that. It always gives me a strange kind of creepy feeling here, right? Because it's like mixed signals. It's like the world upside down, not in like the Stranger Things sense, but it does give the whole thing more of a Longshanks, as you were implying there, and not on the Australia sense either. In the fairy sense. Yes, exactly. It is like a fairy realm. Though, as you say, Longshanks, it is like a fallen fairy realm, which is even creepier and scarier. Though scarier in a different way. Though the scariness also is resonant of the kind of eeriness and otherness of fairy as well. But yes, the topsy-turviness of that gives it that it is not just like being trapped underground. It's not just that kind of fear, that it evokes. It's the topsy-turviness. I mean, to be underground, to be afraid you're never going to make it up above ground again, to fear that you might die, trapped beneath the earth in the darkness, and yet also to realize that you're way up above that you have to descend to get out it's weird, right? I mean, it gives it's a truly eerie sense, which I do think is meant to convey that kind of fairy sense. Okay. Right, it would, as I think Thorin would point out, save on burial expenses. Of course, I know Puddleglum would as well, but I was thinking of Thorin pointing that out. The issue of funeral expenses in Bilbo's contract. But yes, Puddleglum also would approve, of course. All right. Well, I'm going to let folks go. Thanks. This was a long passage, but I think it's good to do a longer passage. As I say, we have one more passage, and then we're going to get Gimli's poem. So we're going to be on to poetry fairly soon. Let's we'll do field trip now. Thanks everybody for joining us. Should be here next week. I think I will be here next week. So I will add, there is a non-zero chance that I won't be here next week, but I'm not 100% sure. Next week is the week when the Rings of Power begins, and I'm doing Rings and Realms, and we have a lot of stuff planned, and I don't know for sure exactly what my time is going to be, when I'm going to be in the studio, when I'm not going to be in the studio. I was realizing that my attitude towards this week, the week before the Rings of Power drops, it's been feeling to me almost like the last week of summer before school begins, which it ironically is for my child. But yeah, in that sense of like, I'm trying to like get everything done before I lose like the freedom and control over my time. Like that sense of the last week of summer is something I've been feeling all week long. So I will try to give people as much warning as possible. It may depend on things, but there is a chance I may end up having to cancel next week. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm hoping we'll be around. So we will... Exactly. Cascade Moot is going to be the start of school party, but it's going to be much cooler. I mean, I didn't usually celebrate the start of school myself, but this isn't exactly like the start of school. It's not like it's a drudgery. It's just going to be a busy and unpredictable time. Anyway, so I will rely upon your patience. And hope that I shall not miss too many Thursday nights here in the next in the next few months. But here we go. All right, thanks everybody. I will see you guys soon, and we're gonna switch over to field trip time. All right.
There. Doing all right. Good to be here. Good to be here.
Excellent. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna do my thing that always makes the thing crash.
Yep, and then I'll get everybody rated up while we're doing that.
Very good. I look forward to seeing you in Seattle. That'll be great.
Ooh.
I'm excited to. One of the things. I'm looking forward to being. I've never been to Seattle.
No, me neither.
I'm excited to go to Seattle. I fear I'm not going to get to see too much in Seattle. I rarely do on moot trips.
Yeah, I remember when I got invited to LostCon and everyone's like, "Oh boy, Los Angeles! You're going to see Los Angeles!" And I spent the whole time in like the Holiday Inn next to LAX.
Yeah.
I think the closest I got is we almost got to a Jack in a Box before the highway cut us off.
Right. The most kind of tragic example of this was when we did Tex Moot in San Antonio, and everyone's like, "Oh, did you get down to see the Alamo and stuff?" And I didn't get more than half a mile away from the airport the entire time. I just like went straight to the hotel, stayed there, and had the moot, and then
they don't even have good barbecue at the airport.
Yeah, no, it was. That was sad. I literally didn't even see San Antonio when I went.
Yeah.
But yeah. I'm hoping to get to experience a little bit more of Seattle than that. But I'm not going to be able to do, the kind of sightseeing that I would love to do in Seattle. I'd love to, see many of the things that I've heard about and do lots of cool stuff. But I'm going to be content to get time to hang out with wonderful people. So, okay, we're going to the Chamber at the Crossroads. April is where we're headed.
You haven't missed anything, Ronan. We're still same milestone.
Same milestone. That's right. We'll be at this milestone still for a bit, I think, because the
Same Kazad time, same Kazad gem.
Yeah, because this one is going to be, we're kind of radiating out from this for a while, because we're planning to we're heading up towards Xeric Zigil, but as I recall, yeah, there isn't really another milestone, is there, until like maybe the Stone Hall?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Maybe there's hall, maybe?
Maybe there's some.
I don't know.
Yeah, well,
Xeric Zigil, I think was that it? Yeah, Xeric Zigil.
There's stable master. We'll be able to stable master to some of these places,
yeah.
But I don't know if there are milestones there or not.
Oh anyway. Yeah, that might be 21st hall.
Yeah. Okay.
Been a while.
So we are. Let's head back out because we explored the area right around here. And speaking of topsy-turvy, I kept having that Mobius strip sensation as we went out to the right here and came down the stairs that the company went up over there. And yeah, I guess I could probably mount up, couldn't I? Yeah, because I was clearly underestimating the altitude of these stairs here. But, so we did that loop and we did some speculating about this area and perhaps why, like the kind of built-in explanation they seem to have given for why those doors are blocked up here in this version, and that's because there seems to be water flooding them. But okay, so this route, this ascending hallway up, is where we left off, and we get right away this really interesting thing at the top of the stairs.
Oh.
Okay. I thought from a distance, I thought that this was like a goblin thing. Like some kind of totem or something.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's a raven, which is a dwarf thing. But the way that this pillar is situated, I mean, we could see that the whole way up, right? This is really kind of, this announces its presence here. What's up with the dangly bits on the wings?
I can't tell if they're supposed to be lamps or something, or
lamps.
They look like weights or something, like almost like they're weighing the wings down. You see how they're in that sort of reverse staggered pattern, like feathers on a wing?
Yeah, they look like, neon bar lights. If I didn't know better, that's what I would think they were.
Yeah. Like half expect to see Chinese characters going down.
Well, right, exactly. Yeah. That's really
they almost
interesting.
Look like paper lanterns or something.
Yeah.
Because, from a distance, it almost looks like this poor bird's been stuck in something.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Totem, I thought from a distance that those things hanging down were going to turn out to be bones. Like we've seen many, that's why I thought it was a goblin thing. I thought
they were crow's cages, actually. Like we'd see skeletons hanging.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, it had the look from a distance. I thought we were going to be seeing, and I was even thinking that the positioning of it at the top of the stairs was itself a kind of warning, since obviously the dwarves have set up camp down at the Chamber of the Crossroads, right? So the goblins who are up here know that there's a pack of dwarves, right, that have set up camp just down the road here. And so when I saw this from a distance and I saw the dangling things hanging down, I thought that this was like a totem with bones or something hanging down, which was designed to claim the territory and warn off the dwarves. But instead, it's a clearly dwarven pillar with a quite realistic, especially for a statue this size, statue of a raven. And in fact, I don't even recall a raven of this size, like a raven statue of this size. Like we see a lot of ravens. We've been to Erebor in game.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a lot of raven motifs over there, of course, as one might expect. But there's a lot of raven heads and raven, stylized raven wings and stuff like that. But I don't remember very many full freestanding whole bird raven statues like this, and it does Amathorn look like it's probably a bronze raven on this
What do you
statue.
make of these dangly bits at the bottom of I'm assuming we're calling them lamps.
What?
It's like wires that got twisted out of position or something.
I just don't know. I mean, maybe
they might
those
be
things
ropes whose physics are off, maybe.
right, or well, no.
It just looks like wires that got bent up.
Right, metal wires is what they look like to me.
Because unshielded pokey wires sticking out just make me nervous.
Right, like you don't want to lick your finger
they're not
and touch the end.
Most of them are not design features.
Right, yeah. But they can't be. So seeing something hanging down like that with a dangling wire could have been something that was attached to something and cut, right, or broke over time.
Yeah, the fact that the lamps aren't illuminated, they definitely seem to be out.
Right, but they were all cut the same length, if so. Like that doesn't seem like it can be an accident or the result of.
Yeah, not unless they were all pulled towards that purple crystal window up there, or like maybe it would have worked if all the lamps were like at an angle and at one point were even, and then just sort of let go, and then they'd fall in that staggered pattern.
Maybe, but again, it's all
like,
the
I can't tell.
The dangly bits hanging down below the rectangular, whatever they are, if they're lamps or. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe they're like.
Could be.
They remind me of wind chimes that get rusted and then they get stuck in weird positions.
Yeah. Yeah, wind chimes was another thing. It was, but again, that was me kind of being reminded of that. I don't.
Not the lamps, just the little wires hanging off it. They might have been free swinging dealies over there or something, but over time they'd get rusted and stuck together, and then they'd be sticking out at odd angles like that.
When you look at it from the side, it just looks weird. But when you look at it from the front, like the effect that it is clearly designed to have, if we go back down and turn around, right? This is clearly the effect they were going for. And here, it makes the wings of, it looks like the wings of the raven are extended out almost like a Native American headdress.
Yeah.
It creates.
I wonder if there was some sort of effect that got lost.
Well, it does. It seems to be certainly going to some kind of effect. Interesting.
Yeah, see, Almaria's on the same page as me. Like they're sort of cantilever weights on the statue. Like the raven's supposed to be flapping its wings.
Right.
Up and down.
Maybe it moved. Maybe it could open or close its wings. That is really interesting.
That could explain the wires, because if they were connected to like a gearbox or something, if you've ever seen any of those wire statues with the turn crank,
right,
you could get a flapping effect from that.
I'm looking at the wings here. Yeah, it's possible. They could rise and fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a second raven head under the first one?
Under?
It's like there's the raven and then there's like the bust of the raven underneath.
Oh,
it,
yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, no, there's right in the front at the bottom there. Yeah. There's like a little raven head corbel that's sticking out from the pillar itself, and then there's the raven perching on top of it. Yeah.
That's weird.
It's a little bit weird, especially since the raven head up above is like the raven head on the pillar is sort of stylized, whereas the one up above is realistic.
Oh, maybe there's more heads underneath it, and they come up and they shift or something.
Maybe
maybe it's like a rotating block wheel, like almost like a tank tread.
Yeah.
So you'd have your flapping wids, you have your changing heads. This is Epcot here, man.
Yeah, this is seriously high tech.
You can see like all the cracks on there. It almost looks like something scraped up on it on one side.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Even the scratches make the whole thing suggest like rotation.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting.
Let me see if I can. I wish there was more light.
Yeah. Yeah, we
Can't
just
see it because I'd love to see if it looked like there were any joints or joins
we just need a little
or
real light.
hinges or anything.
I think the way that the wings come down, it suggests that the wings could flap up, I think.
Yeah, because down is such a defeated position for this guy.
Yeah,
looks
but
kinda
yeah,
sad.
the way again, I'm coming back down the hall, looking up at it. The raven stretching its wings out would totally fill, like its wings would spread and totally fill the opening there.
Mm-hmm.
That would be really impressive. Yeah, I'm loving this. Where are
There's
we?
a
We're just in the middle.
big sort of rectangle in the back too, almost like a gearbox.
Yeah, so if you look at the map, you can see that we are like pretty close to the middle of this big, large, unlabeled area up north of the Chamber of the Crossroads.
And this general maze.
Yeah, exactly.
Mudmulzarak. Mudmulzarak?
Is that what it's called?
We're near it.
But this is, given the slope that we were on, right? It's really steep coming up. Like we've ascended a substantial distance. Our altitude is way above the Chamber of the Crossroads right now, because of that long, steep hallway up. And so this is the beginning of like a new level, essentially. This is like, welcome to whatever part of Moria this was. This upper like northwest corner of Durin, northwest of Durin's Way up here. Again, it's not labeled on the map, but whatever this neighborhood was, this is the beginning of that neighborhood. And they seem to be really welcoming with a bang, and it's striking because, of course, I happen to be looking this way and seeing that statue of the dwarf with the two standing there with the two grounded hammers right there. Or is that like a mace and a hammer? Maybe? No, maybe two hammers. Anyway, two hammers. Anyway, point is, everywhere else so far, we have gotten big dwarf statues as the impressive entry or exit ways to areas. So this, not only raven statue, which is different and interesting, but like super impressive mechanical raven tower, right? Which I mean,
this beats the red horn load goat by a mile.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty impressive. So let's see what else we can find. We're not gonna get to explore everywhere, but the map suggests that we have a big, huge open hall here on the far western side. Oh, here we go. It's named something.
These guys have really ruddy complexions compared to some goblins.
Yeah, I was just noticing that when one passed by me. This is a Ninknach Faltor? Okay. Wow. I have no memory of this place. I don't remember this place. Oh, is this a gulf down to oh wait, or is that water? It's water, isn't it? Yes, it's water. Somebody just jumped in and is swimming. Okay. Thank you for illustrating. I thought that was a void, but no, it's water. Okay. All right.
I don't know what one of you guys did, but I just unlocked it. I just finished some deed.
He just finished a deed? Okay. All right. Okay, so we're... Well, that's interesting, because so beneath the water there is... It's...
Oh, no, I didn't go swimming.
Yes, you do swimming now. How do you get up? Can you?
Yeah, I don't know how to get out. That's the question.
Maybe over on the far side. We'll run around
Gosh,
this way
I
and see
hope
what we can
so.
see. But anyway, it does look like the buildings and the walls continue downwards, so that there were many stories down below this. Oh yeah, there's a shelving shore on the north end there.
Oh, good.
So
Need to find safe harbor.
It is in fact escapable. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Um,
That always scares me with these random bodies of water out here. I'm just sitting there going, like, do I dare? Am I
Right.
going to have to put unstuck in my text log again?
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, that went better than Rivendell. Some of those
Doesn't that
some of
always?
those bodies of water are a bit more unforgiving.
Yes. Okay.
You'd know all about that.
Yes, I would. Okay.
Now we got more conscripted goblins over here.
Have we anywhere seen patterned ceilings that go up as far as this? Look at that. They just continue up as far as the eye can see. Oh, you can vaguely see still a textured and carved roof ceiling way up there. Holy cow.
There. Oh, I'm sure there's more to come, and I'm sure they're going to be bigger and grander as we go.
Wow, that is, and the effect of the sort of vertical stripe effect of this, it kind of looks
it's
like
kind of Byzantine looking.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say like 1960s wallpaper, but yes, Byzantine also. That's even better.
A little from column A, a little from column B.
Yeah.
Groovy.
Okay, so whoever was up here is really, there's a totally different, I'm thinking about the size of this. Yeah, everywhere, no matter how far up you look, it's all finished ceilings here. Finished ceilings and finished walls up as far as the eye can reach, and that's pretty far in these places.
Yeah, this might be one of the more finished areas we've been in.
Yeah, it really is.
Shame the goblins got it. Compared to what we were seeing in the Great Delving, which was this very significant intermixture of the finished and the unfinished. And the broken.
And the broken, for sure, yeah. And there's some of that here, like this, this heap of rubble that I just walked over and such. But, yeah, and then we've got these little piddling goblin camps scattered in amongst them.
The Darkwings are labeled as harassing Darkwings. Dark Claws, sorry, not Darkwings.
Oh yeah, the harassing Dark Claws. Oh dear.
That's the superhero.
These
are Dark Claws. Harassing Dark Claws.
This is a dead end. We can't complete the circuit. Seriously, we get like 350 degrees around this circuit and we can't get through. Do we have to swim?
That's goblins for you.
That's goblins for you. Hang on, was there a passage down here? I think there was, right? No, there's not. Okay. All right.
Well, this is a good time to use our milestone to get back home and then try again next week.
Yeah, probably so. Well, hang on. Unfortunately, there was one thing I wanted to do, which is that stairway. But I don't think, can we get there from here? I guess we can try.
We can try.
We can try. What's the worst that can happen? We just swim all the way to the north because we were going to have to.
That's the Corey I remember.
We were going to have to go anyway, so.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, well, there's a central. Well, I'm tempted to call it an island, but of course it's only an island because this is drowned now, but. I'm trying to decide how much of what I'm seeing here is reflection and how much of that is. Nope, you can't get up?
Not from this part.
Yeah, let's see.
There's some other part, I don't know.
Yeah, Emma Thorne, I agree. I mean, it's one of the ironies of dwarf construction in Kaza. Oops, now we can get anywhere. Oh dear. Oh well. We have to get out to the south again.
Oh well, you've doomed us all.
Yeah, there we go. Anyway, yeah, it's one of the ironies that one notices right away. That I say right away, like in the Thorn's Gate area. One of the original starter areas of the game. that
Oh, yeah.
you know the short people build like higher and more grandiose halls than anybody does.
Alondum had some doozies of spirals as well.
Oh man, we can. Good grief, this is ridiculous. Okay. Anyway, I think we're done. It's just milestone.
Yeah. Okay.
from here.
Everybody, go to your text log, and where it says "say,"
Yeah.
/unstuck.
I think I'm just gonna milestone from here.
Or is it stuck or unstuck? I forget.
Unstuck.
Oh,
isn't
yes, it's unstuck.
It is.
There we go.
Anyway, but not actually stuck. I think we can get down or can get up, but I think it's late anyhow. So yeah, we'll go back and check this island again, and then we'll move on into the other parts as we get closer to the Xeric Zigil stable master. Our goal next time will be to get to that stable master. So.
All right, sounds good.
All right, very good.
First fish. It's not a first for Mythgard and Signum in general. I think it's a first for exploring Lord of the Rings, though.
What, getting stuck in the water?
I got stuck in the water.
Ending at sea here? Yeah, you know.
Yeah, just take a big swallow and go down.
It happens. It happens. All right. Thanks, everybody. We will see you guys next time. Hopefully next week, but we'll see what happens. And I will see you guys next time. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Filari.
Right, at least
Bye
it
now.
wasn't a moose.
That's right. We didn't get attacked by a moose. Look at the bright side. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.